if you heard Mike Babcock this morning, and he just clarified that Freddie Andersen's a man. He's not 12 years old. I don't know if you knew that or not, Ray, but he's a man.
Always good to know these things.
It's always important to have those type of details. And, I'm not surprised by this because this is the story in the city. Like, everyone's talking about Freddie Andersen and his play, and the numbers speak for themselves. He's been a mess for about 6 or 7 starts. Now, the team has been terrible at times in front of him as well, but this has not been vintage Freddie Andersen. And I think people are sensitive to the idea, Ray, that we're dealing with deja vu at this point. It's the same storylines going into this playoff round that we had last year. And Freddie did not have a good March a year ago. He didn't have a great first round against Boston. So, Mike Babcock can't be surprised that people are debating the status of Freddie Andersen and how much he's playing and whether or not he's at 100% and gearing up for the playoffs properly.
I don't think he's ever surprised Babcock, media-wise. I think he's well aware of what the topics are going to be when he goes into that press conference. I think he's got his there's nothing that flies off the cuff for me from Mike. I think he's ready for it. He's giving you the answers that he wants to give you in the order he wants to give them to you. The Andersen's play is really the only topic right now. Aside from the health of the defenseman, because they're in the series that they're in. I mean, that's not going to change. They're not going to have home ice. In doing some of my the last game prep, I noticed there's a couple of players like Janssen, for example. He's got 31 of his 42 points at home. Well, they're going to play 4 of those 7 games on the road. There are some concerning things. But at the top of the list is Andersen's play. I don't see a scenario, guys, that they beat Boston unless Andersen's really good.
Well, we said earlier he's probably got to be their best player.
Yeah.
How is it going to be any other way, really, when we look back at the way the season's run? Even in the games where, they were rolling over people, he was still, we talked about this all year, he was still making 35 saves.
But the timely ones.
Not 35 balloons either. He gets tested pretty good in there.
Well, Game 7 was a perfect example last year. Well, remember, Tuukka Rask did not have a good night. Yeah. Remember, he gave up 4, and there were 2 or 3 that were like, ooh, what is that? He's handing it to the Leafs. If Freddie can make a couple of big stops in the third,
you're right.
You're good. And then Torrey Krug scores on kind of a muffin from the point, and then DeBrusk scores a bad one, and it's over. So I know that's incredibly focused and really putting the spotlight on one period over the course of 7 games.
But that's what it was.
That's what it comes down to.
You can't sugarcoat that. Going into the third, you're in a position, if you not even put it on lockdown, you just got the timely save, which Freddie, for the most part this season, coming into the last 7 or 8 games, hasn't been as much. He's been really good with the big save at the right time. That's what goaltending is. That's what starting goaltending is. That's what Carey Price has done. When LA won the Cup, it was quick. When Chicago won the Cup, it was Crawford. You got that timely save that the group was like, okay, this guy's got our back. We're going to go and get one for him. How many times have you seen it?
There's one more thing with Andersen to me, Noodles, is when I watch him live, I'm always struck by how calm he is.
Yes.
And particular that last game, which was a pond hockey game, but he looked, I won't say rattled, but he looked like he was scrambling around, like nothing felt right or comfortable, and then he got run into 3 or 4 times. That might have just been one night, but that I don't recall seeing that very often.
No, the body language felt different a couple of nights ago.
And I agree too. You said this yesterday, Brian. He looked annoyed. He looked annoyed that, you're right, he was getting bounced around. There were a couple goals he probably should have had or wanted back if he was really sharp. And the team had a stranglehold. Florida they were ready to give up a touchdown. They could have won.
Well, they did it. They almost did it again last night.
I know,
too.
And they should have, but that should have been a 7-1 or 7-2 game. It ended up 7-5 and a post, which could have made it 7-6.
Right, yeah. No, you're right.
That was a game that easily could have been cruised. It could have been point night, and guys feel good about themselves. And I don't know how you guys would feel about it in the dressing room. Yeah, we won that, but it was an ugly one.
against Florida.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Florida the other
Well, it
night.
depends. Did I have 2 and 2?
Yeah, I mean,
Because then we're like, you guys are on your own.
Johnny
back
T
there.
is dancing to the stereo.
Oh,
Yes,
He couldn't care less what happened to Freddie Anderson.
exactly.
I'm on pace for 50, baby. Go ahead, man.
Exactly.
Give up 5 all night. It doesn't bother me.